In part 2 of our conversation with Amber Romaniuk, we're diving deeper into the emotional side of nourishment, how to break from guilt, embrace body confidence, and model self-compassion for your kid. If you've been craving a more peaceful relationship with food or with yourself, this episode will help you find your footing again. So stay tuned. Welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. I'm Kendra Nielsen, wife, mom, and licensed therapist. Do you ever feel like you're doing everything right, but you're still exhausted and empty? Did you think life, marriage, and parenting would be simpler and more rewarding? Sometimes you just want to crawl back into bed and lose yourself in screen time and chocolate, rather than face that personal or family stress. You are not alone. This podcast helps you break free of the rat race and build a richer, more meaningful life, flourishing incrementally and realistically, improving your mental health and wellness, and living with deeper purpose beyond the mundane, no matter where you are in life's journey. I have a few questions for you, but one of them, just out of curiosity, before you were able to do all of these things, you said how you were addicted to sugar, especially, and how it's 10 times more addictive than cocaine. Did you notice any physical symptoms that you can tell us, with those that this resonates with, that you were starting to be worried about long-term detrimental effects?
Oh, yeah. So first off, every time I tried to wean off of refined sugar, I had like drug-like withdrawals. I felt like depressed. My blood sugar would crash and I'd feel so tired and so moody. My cravings for sugar were through the roof. Like some days I felt like pulling my hair out because I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want it so bad. It literally just consumes your thoughts. You can't think about anything else, which costs you enjoyment of the present moment, focusing on your tasks, whatever you're doing. Bloating for sure. I had a bad case of candida, which is unhealthy gut flora. And every time I ate copious amounts of sugar, would just feed it exponentially. And so I was bloated and gassy. My digestion was a mess. It was so sensitive. Obviously, it was contributing to underlying hormone issues that I didn't yet knew that I had. I was so puffy, swollen, and inflamed, brain fog, fatigue, like significant. Like my sleep would be so interrupted if I binged that night. And then I'm more tired. And so part of the concern was like inflammation, making my digestion worse, making my blood sugar worse, ending up a type 2 diabetic, right? Like all of these things were concerns as I started to learn more about it. But my biggest thing in the beginning was, how do I not be addicted to it?
Absolutely. And I'm just curious about some of those things. I've even had clients tell me, I feel like my joints are hurting more. All the things that you said, but even like fighting off infections or getting sick more, like a lot of those
100%.
things where you wouldn't really think about it initially.
Sugar suppresses your immune system immensely. Like I really think it's one of the reasons why the cold and flu season comes through the end of summer into fall and winter, because once it's August here anyway, like all the Halloween candy's out in the store, everything's so laden with sugar. By the time you get into September, it's like Halloween and all the Christmas stuff starts coming out. And then it's Valentine's. And it's like the level of sugar that people are consuming from September to February is insane. And it suppresses your immune system like crazy. Yeah, definitely. And the joint pain is because sugar is very inflammatory. And the more we eat of it, the more inflamed we get. Any chronic pain you have or skin issues, like it's just going to amp all of that up.
Absolutely. So then with that, maybe this resonates with listeners. Yeah, I have a lot of those things, but it's just like how everybody is eating around me. I don't really know how I can change like how everybody's eating and my kids will complain. What do you tell them that feels like it can be a reasonable step for them to start making changes?
Yeah. And I think the first thing outside of everyone around me is doing it is, this is what people should be paying attention to, is the epidemic of processed food that has been allowed to be created, that is normalized. Everyone else is doing it. That's the problem. Everyone is doing it. And that's why these behaviors are such an epidemic. And so give yourself a little like encouragement. I'm going to try a different path and I am going to be the first one. And you never know the ripple effect that may have then without you even saying anything to your family, your kids, your friends. Like the ripple effect that me choosing to be different has had on my life, my husband's family, all the people that I've helped. Like you never know the change, but most importantly, it's for you first. And I think from there, it's like we start with small changes, right? You may start just changing a few of the ingredients you bring into the house. So like instead of just bringing white sugar home to bake with, start using coconut sugar, raw honey, maple syrup, monk fruit sweetener, stevia, like whatever that looks like. And you just start with one change. You may also, I have clients who set boundaries with their husbands and say, hey, I'm trying to reduce my sugar intake. So if you have all the stuff that you like, have your drawer, put it somewhere. But please maybe like don't tell me about it for a while they're healing. And then it helps make it easier. Because if one of your biggest triggers is that it's in the house, how are you going to fully heal it if you're severely addicted? If you're minorly emotionally eating, it's going to be probably a lot easier. But I was so addicted to certain things that part of my healing was not having them in the house to gain traction. And then once I overcame the big parts of it, it didn't matter anymore. But it depends how severe your addiction is. I think one of the biggest pieces of healing any kind of emotional or binge eating is you've got to work on balancing your blood sugar. Stop skipping meals. Stop skipping breakfast. You are literally setting yourself up for bigger sugar cravings and overeating or binging later in the day. Ideally, you want to eat something small within 30 to 60 minutes of waking up. Pick something you really like, some nut butter or nuts. Make some chia puddings and eat it the night before. If you want to get up and have breakfast, we need to start stabilizing our blood sugar. Once we get food in the stomach, our cortisol stress hormones start to drop, which also helps set us up for better energy, mood, and blood sugar through the day. When women are skipping meals and they're fasting or they're like, I'm not hungry, so I'm not going to eat, you're setting yourself up so much more easily to lose control or feel tempted. And as women get into their 30s and beyond, you're hitting perimenopause, menopause, post, you've got to amp up your blood sugar support or you are going to end up in these behaviors more easily. Add enough protein with your meals. Eating regularly through the day and ideally not going more than 3 to 4 hours without eating is a good cadence to help regulate your blood sugar while you're trying to heal your relationship with food. And carbohydrates, like fruits and vegetables, they shouldn't be demonized. Like we need enough carbohydrates. Some women tolerate grains better than others, right? But like sweet potatoes, yams, beets, carrots, right? There's fruit like berries and apples and banana. There's so many good nourishing things that have been demonized. And I think all the demonization of food groups through the year confuses us and we're like, how should I eat? But it's just basic. Start with eating something small within 30 to 60 minutes of waking up or breakfast if you feel up to it, eating every few hours, and making sure you have protein and fat with your meals to help start stabilizing blood sugar and start getting some natural alternative sweeteners into the house.
Yeah, I know for me, I go back and forth, like the health industry, for example, when I was a personal trainer, it was so much do this. And so I'd try different things to see how it worked. Intermittent fasting is something that I've tried on and off, but I've had several guests on that have shared the hormone aspect. And so I would test it out. And recently I have done more of that. My mornings are pretty chaotic like most people, but I was like, I really want to dial this in. So I bulk made as healthy of foods as I could. And then I just froze it and have it ready for breakfast.
Yeah.
The best that you can do, right, in the morning. Noticing that difference, I think that was the big thing, that you're not having so many sugar cravings. You do well for part of the day, but then what does the second half of your day look like? And have you then just repeated this continuing pattern from then on that you keep digging yourself a hole somewhat? So being honest about how that's showing up.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And then seeing where the holes are and going, okay, would it help for me to do some food prep on Sunday and cook some hard boil some eggs, cook some chicken or some beef or whatever, have protein available, have avocados, have raw nuts and seeds so that you can quickly throw something together, roast some vegetables, put something in the slow cooker. Like, I think we have to start normalizing prioritizing our health and prioritizing nourishment because it's one of the ways you set yourself up for good choices and set yourself up for success. Get help, get your kids to help, get your husband to help, get your roommate, whoever, like get help with it. You don't have to do it all by yourself either.
Absolutely. And I do want to save time for going to that second part of it too. There's all these systems we can have in place or these hacks that we can make the eating part easier. But if we're skipping over the important part, like that mental health aspect,
Yeah.
like not getting to the root cause, that's where people are getting stuck. And they're like, no, I'll focus on
Yeah.
the logistics instead of really going deeper. How were you able to do that? You got to your breaking point, you said, but what do you notice in clients, for example, where they're stuck, and how do they make that leap into something that they'd rather just keep suppressing?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is I'm always educating them in the podcast of we need to address the roots if we really want to heal it. So starting to normalize being open to listening to and consuming more resources that are actually talking about root cause healing and unsubscribing from all the quick fix gimmicky things. I think as well, starting to be lovingly honest with yourself. If you've been dealing with this for years or decades and you're still dealing with it and it's not getting better, you gain a bit of stride and then you fall back in. What are you not looking at and what are you afraid to face? And getting lovingly honest with yourself. What feels comfortable is the systems, is the diets, is this focus. What is uncomfortable is feeling, is really addressing it from the roots and being willing to go, okay, I'm really aware and it's uncomfortable. However, if I want to make a change, I have to be willing to try something different. And probably being willing to get some support with it, because if it's been years or decades, there's a lot to unpack, and getting that support is going to help you gain traction more efficiently and help you actually get where you want to go. Because I think one of the things that can happen when we're trying to do it all ourselves is you fail and then you get really hard on yourself and then you just quit. And when you work with someone, it's no, failure is a learning opportunity. You're going to have ups and downs on their journey. They're going to teach you, help you build awareness, and help you move forward. So having someone to help point that out for you and help you see all the things you can't see yourself, and also give you loving encouragement, but know how to call you out at the same time, is an incredibly powerful way to help you gain traction. You get equipped with the tools and the support, but yet it's your responsibility to go into your life and to see where you can make change. And it's also important to learn compassion and self-forgiveness, because you're going to have days where it's not going to go well, but then you learn from it. And that's where you're going to learn where boundaries need to be set, where you need to learn how to say no and stop people pleasing so much, where you block time in your schedule for yourself, where you go to bed a little bit earlier, right? Where you take some time to journal through what's going on. It is learning ownership and responsibility rather than blame and putting it on everyone else. You will heal when you take ownership and responsibility and you are willing to set boundaries. So this is some of the stuff.
You shared some of those boundaries for yourself, but do you have specific ones with clients maybe that you've worked with that they start out with that are more maybe game-changing initially of those boundaries?
Oh yeah, 100%. So first off, it's them acknowledging that they have really big people-pleasing, proving, or perfection behaviors, and there's nothing wrong. We all have some form of survival mechanism that has been like leading us where we are. So it's like no shame in the game. Like it is what it is. But I think helping them understand where those behaviors came from, and a lot were rooted from childhood, and then going, okay, where are you on your priority list? And often the response is last. Okay, so how do we get you from last to halfway up the list for starters? Because the goal is obviously the top of the list. And why does it feel so uncomfortable for you to prioritize yourself? My kids need me and I feel guilty taking time for myself and I don't want to take away from my family, or my work's so busy I can't take my lunch break because blah, 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 blah. I don't want anyone to think I'm not doing my job and I don't want to get fired. I don't want to be judged for eating my lunch. Okay, so do you notice where there's all this fear and negative emotion around you literally giving yourself your basic needs? So we need to start working on setting boundaries around you having the ability to give yourself your basic needs, to drink water, to go to the bathroom when you need, to stop and take your lunch break at work because you have the right to do. And you don't need to work and eat. And then the guilt and shame, right? So we have to work on clearing those emotions, because again, it's uncomfortable to prioritize when you've been last on your list and you've been in this dialogue with yourself, in this dynamic. So again, we need to understand the discomfort of that and start going, let's block your lunch break and you're not working through it. Put your technology off and just focus on eating your food. Okay. Where in the day do you want to start dedicating 10 minutes to yourself? Is it when you get home from work? Is it before bed? Is it in the morning? Little bite-sized pieces. And the first biggest boundary, you block it in your schedule. It can change. It can become a different time. We can be flexible, but we have to start with, this is the boundary that is affirming I'm declaring myself a priority and nothing is getting in the way of this time. And then often they will, in the beginnings, be blocking things over that time. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Do you notice how quickly you revert back? And then you get triggered because you're not taking the time. And so part of it is in the beginning, even though we work on setting boundaries, it's for them to see why they're behaving the way that they are and how quickly they fold and why that is, and to muster up the courage and bravery to hold that time for themselves. The boundary of opening up time is incredibly important. I know everyone's busy, but if you have time to scroll, to watch TV, to emotionally eat, you have time to open up for yourself. If you have time to give to everyone else and people please, you have time to open up and give to yourself and stop giving so much to everyone else. I think just also making a list of who am I saying yes to and what am I saying yes to that I deep down want to say no to, and to actually start canceling, shelving things, saying no where it's easier, and start building up your no muscle. And it doesn't always have to be a no, but there's probably a pretty big imbalance in the beginning. Start with the easy boundaries, right? And then work toward the ones that feel really uncomfortable and terrifying to set, because it will help you build the confidence to get to that point where you can build them, because you're going to have to set boundaries and start prioritizing yourself. And it will, like I said earlier, the guilt and the resistance and all that will happen at first, but that's because your brain is registering you setting boundaries as a threat to your survival. As you change them and set them and you start to feel better and your behaviors change and you emotionally eat less and you have more energy, etc., your brain is going to register setting boundaries and honoring yourself as the comfort zone. And what will now become uncomfortable is saying no, throwing yourself under the bus, and not taking the time for yourself. Now, it's not about perfection and the perfect schedule, but it is about recognizing when you go off or a line is crossed and recalibrating and resetting those boundaries. Right? Yeah. And you will get to the point where you love yourself so much that you will become intolerable to people pleasing, and you'll become intolerable to people or things overstepping your boundaries. And no is a complete sentence.
Yeah. Love that. So many good parts. And I do have to ask, because I know this one is big too, for triggers, what would you say are the top maybe 2 that people have, your clients, that are like, whoa, I didn't even recognize that?
I think the first biggest one is being an empath and being really sensitive to feeling and taking on other people's stuff and not knowing how to set those boundaries and those energetic boundaries. So when you have a conversation with somebody and they dump everything on you, and then you go home and you felt really good beforehand, and now you're going home feeling like sad and angry, and then you binge, right? That's you taking on other stuff that isn't yours. So learning how to set boundaries and energetic boundaries and not take on other people's stuff is incredibly important, because as you heal, you become more intuitive and you do become more attuned. And that means you're going to have to learn how to protect your energy and, again, not take on other stuff. So I think that's a really big one. And I think the other is really around the hormone imbalances. We're not taught about our hormones, just first of all, let alone the way that they impact our brain and our mood and our energy and just our ability to feel and be who we are. And so when someone has high cortisol, as a quick example, fatigue is one of your first symptoms, or exhaustion. And when you're tired, you have an increased appetite because you produce more ghrelin, which is your hormone that makes you hungry. And when your cortisol is high, it dulls your ability to produce leptin, which is your fullness signal. So even just that alone, having high or low cortisol significantly increases your chances of wanting to overeat or binge, cravings for sugar, salt, or carbs, which makes it so much easier to want to overeat, binge, or emotionally eat. And if I can guarantee you, most of your listeners are probably innocently walking around with hormone imbalances that they don't know that they have, or how they're correlated to their behaviors. And so it's so easy to stay in these vicious cycles if we haven't addressed our hormones, understand our blood sugar, the way our gut is functioning, because all these physical imbalances can create binge and emotional eating triggers. And obviously, binging and emotionally eating fuels these imbalances on the physical end. So learning about that, getting your hormones thoroughly tested, understanding your blood sugar, your gut, these are incredibly important things to support while you're healing your relationship with food. So that is another big trigger.
So many important, impactful things that you talked about today, and how all of this goes right back to mental health and honoring yourself. Yeah. Just that slow grow, doing all of these things to listen more to our body, to reconnect, to change those neural pathways to this other way of tending to yourself, this more compassionate way. Beautiful things that you said. And just last two things, where can we find you? And also, what's one way that you've deepened your own fulfillment in your life recently?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website at amberapproved.ca. I have a free emotional eating quiz if you're wondering if you're struggling, as well as a consultation that is complimentary. So if you want to talk about hormones, gut, healing your relationship with food, setting boundaries, whatever it is, reach out. And then the podcast is called the No Sugarcoating Podcast, and it's available everywhere. I'm setting even stronger boundaries, honoring the nervous system.
Thank you again for coming on the show with us today. Loved all that you had to share with us, and I know it resonates with a lot of us, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to chat with you.
Thanks for being part of this empowering conversation on healing your relationship with food and fulfillment. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at hello@fulfillmenttherapy.org if there's a topic you'd like us to explore, or if you'd like a free coaching call that could become a podcast episode. And don't forget to follow @Fulfillment Therapy on Instagram and Facebook for daily encouragement and practical tools to live a life you love. We'll see you back here every Monday with new episodes. Until then. Hey friends, if you enjoyed this episode, a quick 30-second share can help someone else find support and help this podcast grow. Leaving a review on Apple Podcasts boosts visibility and keeps the show alive. Your simple acts make a big difference. I'll see you back here each week for more life-changing episodes.